Okay, welcome everybody. My name is Kishen Mangat. I'm a venture capitalist from Boulder Ventures based in Boulder, Colorado. We invest in 5G-enabled enterprise applications, and I'm happy to be hosting this panel today to talk about brownfield networks and how players in the space are advancing open mobile network applications, bridging the gap between legacy networks and newer virtualized technologies. Our discussion is going to cover the state of the ecosystem and the required changes to establish a pool of applications and developers that can promote innovation. And so we're going to focus on, what new avenues operators have to leverage OpenRAN, tools to control costs and build new services, both from the operational perspective as well as the investing perspective, and then review some of the lessons learned in the space. So let me introduce our panelists. First, on the right is Andrey Kuzin, who's the CTO of Network Strategy for the Axiata Group. He also has CTO responsibilities for Axiata's Cambodian operation. We also have Sameh Yamany, who's the CTO of VIAVI, a leading network test and assurance player. Sameh has held multiple senior executive positions during a distinguished career in the telecom and wireless industry. And Charles Immendorf, just immediately to my right, is the CEO of Spectrum Effect. He's a serial entrepreneur. His previous company, Eden Rock, was acquired by Nokia in 2015. And so I'm going to start with my first question for Charles. Over your last two startups, Charles, Spectrum Effect and Eden Rock, what have you found to be the largest challenges with the creation of RAN applications and selling those applications to operators? And how could an ORAN RIC or RAN Intelligent Controller framework help in that process?
Thank you, Kishen. Excellent question, and great to be on the panel. I can tell you that being in this space, trying to be an entrepreneur, selling RAN optimization innovations to mobile operators is miserable. It's a very tough, terrible thing to try to do, right? Because you have proprietary interfaces from the RAN vendors. You have to get enough support from operators to get those. You have extraordinarily long sales cycles from operators that are akin maybe for buying large RAN purchases as opposed to a small application. You have very little appetite from investors because they understand how difficult it is to make a successful business. So if we kind of look at it and I think that's kind of a limiting factor. So in a sense, if you can do it, it's great because you have less competition, right? Because there's very few companies that can, but it's a very tough space to get into. So I think the ORAN RIC, particularly the RIC, and again, we're kind of an intelligent application perspective, it could be a game changer for the industry in that you wouldn't have to build all the plumbing to do all the analysis of the proprietary data from the RAN vendors. You wouldn't have to have that additional investment. You'd be able to get to market a bit faster. And I'm hoping that the operator perspective would change as well for adopting new applications.
So kind of a portal or a channel to bringing new applications into the network.
Exactly. Without the cost of having to build a complete framework to do it. Yeah.
Great. So for Sameh, I'll ask. VIAVI is a respected supplier of applications like Paragon for subscriber geo-based analysis of networks. What opportunities does VIAVI see for creation of new applications that could plug into a RIC framework?
Yes, perfect question. And actually, I agree with Charles. I mean, building RAN optimization solution, Charles was saying, for carriers, you depend a lot on a lot of different things. The vendors you're playing, the environment you're in, the telco, restriction. I mean, there is a lot of different things that goes into it. And of course, sometimes you need a lot of investment, big company to go around and try to work with everybody. But I mean, it kind of reduces the chances for having quick and fast innovations like you want to innovate something, you want to be able to test it quickly and fail quickly, as well as get the success. So I think with the environment that Rick is creating right now, you will have this opportunity. Now, there are a lot of challenges still, but we in VIAVI see that by opening up these interfaces and providing a platform, and this is the key, providing a platform, you can bring in new innovators quickly. The investment they require for them to be able to test something like this, or to get a very similar to a real network environment so that you can actually innovate the applications, is going to be much better, right? So it will reduce the barrier to entry for innovation. But I think there are still a lot of challenges we are seeing in this kind of ecosystem, and how it's going to interoperate and how it's going to be open. But I think it is where we are seeing the potential for bringing innovation much faster and much quicker.
Well, it seems like the GSMA is also noticing some of these hurdles to innovation, because yesterday they announced the new Open Gateway initiative with support from more than 20 mobile operators, including Axiata. So, Andrey, I wanted to ask you, when do you expect that Smart would support these 8 new network APIs, and what would you see the opportunity being for Axiata from this initiative?
Okay, thanks for your question. So basically, Axiata, we have started a long time ago to develop the application API gateway. It was, I don't know, like 7 years ago minimum. We have some traction on various markets, right? And in Cambodia, it was not that much popular because there are not big community of developers who would use these APIs. Partially, it's also maybe our fault that we didn't invest into advertising it, training people how to use it. But if we come back to the I think we are talking about Camara initiative, right? If we are talking about Camara, I think it's there is a good value in itself that it's been driven by the GSMA, because this will create hopefully a critical mass for adoption, because as the more operators has the same well-defined APIs that follow these 3 principles, that they are again well-defined, easy to use, they are open, and everybody can, let's say, the same developer can easily scale it to multiple operators. Then it's opening up the infrastructure for many services that we don't even know what it will be. So hopefully it will create this sort of a critical mass again for new applications.
Wonderful, thank you. Sameh, do you see a more immediate opportunity for VIAVI with brownfield or greenfield networks? And then maybe talk a little bit about the operator influences that influence your investment decisions.
Yes, so definitely greenfield is easier, right? We were seeing, with the innovation, you will see the new players, especially now the whole cloudification of the RAN and the core, you'll be able to build a very substantial part of the network using a lot of innovative techniques. So greenfield is where we're seeing, but still, I think the innovation is required by the brownfield. With the investment that is being put in 5G, and OpenRAN is becoming more and more of a reality, even though it's still not mature yet. I see that the operators are looking at this kind of openness. In fact, we were part of the XRAN even before OpenRAN in 2018, where a lot of operators came in and said, we really need this open platform. We don't want to be, we want to be able to open it up for a lot of different vendors, because they get not just it's not the cost part that is important, it's really the innovation part, that I will be able to bring services and application quicker to the market. Now, in reality also, you have to understand that, there is still the question of how you're going to test that and how you're going to bring realistic behavior so that these apps, developer, can test in the real network. And this is one of the things we're doing, working with Spectrum Effect and VIAVI, bringing in the field expertise, Spectrum bringing in a lot of the application knowledge, working together and building these kind of realistic environment where app developers can come in and actually test their scenarios, think how it, do what if scenarios and see how it's going to scale up and scale down. I think this is the hurdle that we go through, and VIAVI see a lot of opportunity for us in this area because we bring in this kind of digital twin concept.
Yeah, it's reality is a great word,
Yes.
Especially when contemplating the adoption of ORAN in the industry. So I want to actually turn to Andrey because you have a new NR network from Huawei, and so I'm wondering if you're evaluating or open to introducing a RIC into that environment in order to make some of those steps towards that OpenRAN reality.
Yes, in general, I mean, in Smart we are a single vendor at the moment, but as a group we are having a general kind of idea that the OpenRAN will bring us. We think, say, we have a huge pressure now on the cost, right, first of all, and we think that it will bring us. OpenRAN will bring us the cost improvement because it will be more open for more vendors, right? So there will be no several dominant vendors that they shape the market, right, and decide the prices. And we have started a few, let's say, test zones, actually in Sri Lanka, where we test various OpenRAN vendors. I will not say the names. I'm not sure if I can. But at the moment, we see that this the promise is not there yet because I think it's not mature enough. We see that for maybe for greenfield it is possible, but for greyfield is really difficult because again maturity is not there. There is no interoperability between the incumbent vendor and this new OpenRAN vendor because even if you want to introduce us as a 5G layer, there is still, let's say, if an NSA setup, there is no interoperability. You just cannot do it. And there are more issues with completely changing the way how operator work with this sort of setup because you have to introduce more companies. You have to introduce. With the single vendor, you have just a single vendor, right? But with the OpenRAN, you have to do one more company. Actually, not one; there are just few. One of them should be the system integrator who will put all these things together. So it's a big change into operational model of the operator. And for example, for me as a smaller operator, I just don't see at the moment any sort of justification to do that. But as soon as we see that there will be a capex advantage, and this advantage will be big enough, at least measurable, then we can actually open up and do it's a multi-vendor sort of setup. But again, at the moment, maturity is not there yet.
Right. Makes sense. Charles, this next question's for you, and from the investor perspective, because we've talked about it in the past, how important the OpenRAN RIC is for adoption of these new applications, because the brownfield networks have such more pressing need to adapt, whereas greenfield it's a little bit easier in terms of timing and so on. But what do you see for investors with the OpenRAN RIC adoption? Are there applications like yours that can help to mitigate the risk for the adoption of the RIC?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of chicken and egg with this, right? Because for our company currently, we work with traditional RAN networks with mobile operators and analyze the data and make improvements based on that. So when the RIC, once the RIC is introduced and once there's enough RAN equipment behind it to justify the price of the application, then you can invest in maybe more specific applications for the RIC, right? So for ours, it's a little bit easier since we have an existing application. To port it to a RIC is pretty straightforward. But if you were to say, okay, I'm going to make a new RIC application just out of the blue, you'd want to say, okay, how much RIC has has Axiata deployed or other operators deployed? How quickly will they deploy? What is really my market size? And of course, you have all the other traditional types of things you have to figure out as an entrepreneur as well. Is if you have an idea what the competitive landscape looks like, what their addressable market looks like, who will jump in, will people copy it, is there any intellectual property concerns? So all those types of things have to be factored in as well. So I do think that kind of step one would be RIC adoption with maybe traditional or existing applications like we have or other suppliers have, and then two, once there's enough of a footprint for RIC, then I think you'll see a lot more innovation coming in with new applications.
So it's a matter of being RIC compatible but not RIC gating, and bringing that value to the operator as quickly as possible.
That's right.
So we're out of time, but I'm going to ask one last question. I'm going to put Andrey on the hot seat with an investor question. And I used to be on the operating side, so I know this very personally. Operators are notoriously known for long sales cycles that require trial processes, and it's really more suited for large-scale RAN purchases like Charles mentioned. And this is tempered investment in the VC space. I also know that from being a founder. Do you see an opportunity for this to change and enable greater participation from the startup application ecosystem?
Well, there is a reason, as you probably know, why is it such a long processes. For example, our current experience with the POC for the OpenRAN, what we found, it took us, not us, it took the OpenRAN providers at least 3 months to make their base station work. So it's not like us, it's the maturity of technology itself, right? But we still want to carry on. We still, it's also our resources on our end, not as much as on the ORAN, but so basically we understand that we have to give the chance, because otherwise, if we don't give the chance, then we basically closing the door for newcomers. Again, we have to balance between the long processes to make sure that if we choose a vendor, again, the vendor wants a big size of the business, right? Like we speak to these guys, they say, as soon as you give us, starting from 1,000 stations, then we can talk about good pricing, right? But we cannot commit for these big amounts if we don't know if this technology actually works. So there is like a chicken and egg again situation. Then we cannot commit for anything that is not tested. So we have to test it. And testing have to take a long time because as technology is not that mature, it takes it takes a lot of troubleshooting on the vendor side as well. So at the moment we kind of, it's not because of us, it's because of the technology maturity. For example, if we test more mature technology, it takes really not that much time. Right? It's not even months, it's a few weeks and we see the results. Currently, several months, and we see that, our real experience, radio units just turn off, turn on, no alarms, we don't know why, nobody knows why. So we just figure out that maybe there is just a quality issue, right? So at this moment, we just have to do it.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is strap in and enjoy the ride. So we'll go ahead and conclude. We want to thank our hosts from the Telecom Infrastructure Project. Thanks a lot, everybody.